Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag down here?
Yeah.
Oh, in the darkness over there, okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the door now. Yeah, I know it's warm in here.
Okay, we do have one of our commissioners out tonight. Commissioner LeBlanc is not here, so I will seek Commissioner Carey for Commissioner LeBlanc. Okay, our first thing is new business. We have discussion regarding the approach process for writing new regulations, moratorium for housing and freight/warehouse facilities. I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Yeah, so this was really just kind of whether or not you wanted to approach this by subcommittees or how you wanted to approach it, the regulation writing moving forward. So I know that we've done it different ways in the past for different purposes. So really, that's just kind of, I guess what I'm just really want to have is a framework so that we keep this moving forward as we keep going, so.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to appoint some subcommittees for meeting regarding this. Of course, any subcommittee cannot have a quorum, so the subcommittees, as far as planning and zoning members, will be 3 members. For the freight warehouse facility, I know Paul Bernstein has done a lot of work on that. So I'd like him to join me on that committee, and I'd also like these to be bipartisan committees if at all possible. So if there's anybody available who would like to be part of that committee, I'm not sure if Michael might be the best person for that, or
It's like anything else, when is it gonna meet? And because I know it's cart before the horse, but it makes a big difference.
no, it does make a big difference.
I think the other thing I'd like to hear is what are all the committees that you're thinking of establishing, and then we can think about where we think we fit in best.
Well, we've got 2 things right now before us, is the warehouse moratorium per se, and the other one is the housing moratorium.
You know, as you and I are speaking about, Chair, with the housing one, you could break that up into a couple committees. Potentially, you could look at one that's looking kind of at the density component of housing. You could have one looking at the design standards in the subdivisions, or you could have one that's looking at the multifamily component or the affordable component. So it could be that it kind of shifts as we move forward too, that we take up different topic areas. Because the housing one is kind of a broader kind of look than the warehouse freight terminal. It's more narrow in focus. So you could have a couple different components.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at, for Water Pollution Control Authority, we're trying to codify how we actually build the different kinds of housing. There are, I don't know, almost a dozen different kinds of housing, you know.
Yeah, I was part of that discussion. As far as when you can meet, I will tell you what I will offer. I'm here till 7 o'clock every Monday. I would be more than happy to have any subcommittee that wanted to meet at 5 or 5:30 on Monday evenings. I will come any other day of the week that you want as well, too, in the evenings. But, you know, Mondays there's town council meetings, but there are any other meetings that I'm aware of as far as other boards and commissions. So Mondays are good if, you know, we wanted to try to have some committee twice a month maybe or something like that. I think that, you know, weekly isn't necessary, but I don't think we want to do monthly either. I think we need to be doing a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what days of the week works for people. Again, I can be as flexible as possible, but I do know we're here at Town Hall till 7 on Mondays, so that's certainly.
Let me just maybe make one other suggestion, and that is that you think about it in 2 phases. One is, what's the policy we're trying to implement? And then the second phase is crafting the wording. I think if you sit down and start crafting the wording right away, you lose the forest for the trees. So, you know, what are the policies we want to implement in that wording? and then making the wording happen, which is a lot of interaction with you.
So maybe before we even get into breaking up into the subcommittees, maybe we want to go through what we're going to go through the rest of tonight, which is really focused on the housing.
Yep.
It's going to kind of get you into the different types of housing. And this is really focused more on lots creation and whatever, but it does touch on the other parts. Just and then I think you might have a broader picture and you might have a better discussion about it. So
I'm fine with that.
we can do that. Okay. So what I did is I handed you out an outline, and I just thought, you know, we've all been around our regulations forever, but some people are new and don't know it. So I just want to kind of just take a step back and just talk a little bit of housing in general, how we get there, and just this is more of a guide, a resource for you to be able to go back and use as a reference as we move forward. So what I wanted just to bring to your attention was, first and foremost, your plan of conservation and development. You know, we have two sections in here that really talk to housing. You have the residential development section, which is chapter 11, and you have chapter 4, which got into community character, which really focused more on your Main Street area and housing related to Main Street. You know, we all know this is a 2014 document. We're about ready to embark on a brand new one. However, there's a lot of stuff in here that is still good to look back on, reflect on, and that kind of brings me to the other component that you should all have is the implementation element. This was kind of the strategic plan of the POCD. You know, we visited a couple times where we kind of tried to track our progress. Again, I'd encourage you to look at those two sections in here to see what we've done under the residential development section and what we've done under the Main Street section related to housing. So that's kind of like the broad brush kind of stuff. And again, we'll be looking to update all this when we're going over to the POCD updates. And so then I just wanted to take a minute here and just talk about the zoning map. So the zoning map, which we all got a new one today. This is hot off the press. Hopefully it has no errors on it all. So again, when you look at your zoning map, this is going to be the basis for how our town gets built, obviously. So how we carve up our lots. So your residential zoning, they're all classified on the side here. You know, primarily the greens and whatever, the blues not. But so when we go to look at, you know, a subdivision or whatever, the first thing anybody's going to look at is the zone of the property because that's going to help them decide things. So from the zoning map brings you to your zoning regulations. So I just wanted to talk about the different kinds of lots we're creating through our zoning regulations. Different than your subdivision regulations, which are really your design standards for these creations, right? So the zoning regulations, when we're talking about a conventional subdivision, that's when we're going to our table, and I reference it for you, 3.12A, where that's just your bulk table of requirements. It says, when you're in the rural residential zone, the R zone, you need to have a minimum of 40,000 square feet for every lot you create. You need to have a minimum of 175 feet of frontage, and you need to have a minimum of 200 depth. So that's where anybody looking to cut up a piece of rural residential land first needs to look, okay? We have that for every single zone. So when we start talking about we don't like what our lots are looking like, I don't know, do you not like how big your lots are? Do you not like the side yards, how, you know, that we're putting buildings not close enough to the lot line or too close, you know, so there's different things we can look at about the lots, I guess is my point. And this being a conventional subdivision is where you just take your bulk requirement for a zone and you carve it up that way. What you also have in your regulations is you require open space. So anytime you're carving up your lots conventionally and you're gonna get to 6 or more lots, it kicks in a requirement that says, okay, 20% of that land needs to come to the town as open space. Or we say we'll take a fee in lieu of open space. So again, this is all part of your carving up of the subdivision process. Over the years, you've taken it both ways. You've taken it as 20% pieces, and we can show you examples of that. You've taken it as fee in lieu of. The best ones I can give you examples of those would be the subdivisions that are off of Deming, where they're just small, short cul-de-sacs. They didn't come with any open space. Those actually paid a fee per lot into an open space funds. That's one way that you can carve up your land. The other way is your open space subdivision. And again, I've given you the reference to where that is in your regulations. And I'd encourage you, and especially anybody that gets on the subcommittee that's really going to be looking at these bulk requirements and criteria, you know, to really check out these regulations, because these open space regulations are really robust. They have a lot of criteria designed into them. But what I want to kind of point out is what you're using for bulk requirements. Again, this is what the developer has to design his lots to look like. And we break it down again through the rural residential zone. If you're doing an open space subdivision, I guess what you should know first and foremost is 50% of the land's coming as open space. So that's already, reducing how much is being developed of the land. However, how many lots get is the same yield that they would get on the whole picture. It's just being done with smaller lots, less infrastructure. In theory, we're getting open space that's of value to the town, whether it's, a linkage to further open space or it's for the development. So my point is we have different tools right now on how we carve up our land. And if we're gonna talk about changing things, these are all different areas that you wanna at least look and see what we're doing and say, yeah, we think that's a good idea, it's not a good idea. I just wanna take one step backward now and just talk about what we did with our POCD related to Main Street. Now that you know how we carve up land, one of the exercises that we did back in 2014 is we had our consultant take vacant land on Main Street and apply the current zoning on it, apply if we were to make it, it's currently 1 acre zoning for all practical purposes. What if we made it 1.5 acre zoning and what if we made it 2 acre zoning? And we got a different range of lot numbers, obviously, because more lots can be built as. I think one of the things we did after that is we had a Main Street study where we had a big crowd of Main Street come out and we facilitated a study for many months and we heard, I think pretty loud and clear, don't change the zoning on Main Street. So my point is to go to 2 acre zoning, which some people might be like, yeah, we need to stop our housing, let's go to 2 acre zoning. That may not be palatable, nor may it be the best decision. So these are all different things that we gotta weigh and consider. One of the things that Jeff and I could do with that is, one of the things that we have done on Main Street is we have purchased some development rights. So we've intersected some potential subdivision road patterns by taking pieces out of the picture, by taking the development rights away. That's certainly a way to minimize housing that occurs on Main Street. That's a program the town has and it's moving forward. So there's different things we can look at for Main Street. And again, going back to the Main Street study, which I know Bart and Stephanie were part of, if you do open space subdivisions and look for your open space to be closest to Main Street and have the housing set back. I mean, those are all tools that you have that you could look at as part of looking at how you design your developments.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just wanted to, have you go back and you can take a look at that. And again, Jeff and I can take a stab of updating those numbers as we move forward if you think it's important to look at that stuff. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about the open space. And then the other lots that we've been talking about are interior lots. And I just wanted to just take a second to let you know how interior lots are created, why they're created, that kind of thing. This kind of goes back historically to Zoning Board of Appeals was creating lots by giving variances to frontage requirements. If it's a big 5 acre lot but only has 200 feet of frontage, certainly can support more than one house, can't meet the requirements for a frontage requirement. So at that time, the planning and zoning decided they wanted to have more control on how these lots looked that were being created, and therefore you created the interior lot regulation. The intent was to allow for some larger lots that could support more than one house, and actually you allowed up to 2 interior lots to be created without having adequate frontage. And we put in design criteria. Each zone has different criteria. In a nutshell, what you're able to do is you take the zone you're in, you double the acreage. So in a 1 acre zone, you need 2 acres. You need typically 150 feet of frontage. What we say is, okay, in 2 acres, back here where you're parallel to the road, you need to be 1.5 that. So you need 225 feet parallel. So essentially we're creating a larger, thicker lot, if you will, in the back. We
They were historical lots too.
Yeah, a lot of
So
them were old
you couldn't
historic.
create an interior lot on a parcel that exists, that was changed prior or after 1991. So it had to be in its same configuration up to 1991. After that, it wouldn't be eligible for an interior
Yeah, so
lot.
the intent was to allow a lot of existing lots that are out there that could support more housing, not to go create new interior lots. So it was, and I think, we have some samples. We've had a lot of different experience over the years, whether they're good, bad. A lot of it's locational, but I think some of the things you might want to look at is whether you want them in your 820 zone still, or if you think the criteria that are currently in place are working for what you're hoping to look at. So those are kind of the things that I just wanted to talk about as far as being driven by your zoning regulations, if you will, carving up your land. subdivision regulations, again, you're getting more into your general provisions and definitions, and then you're getting into your procedures, you know, how you go about submitting them, pre-application process, the whole idea of roads and how we reduce bonds and the surety required for bonds. So, you know, with subdivision regulations, you're creating public improvements. You're putting in new roads, you're putting in new sidewalks, you're creating drainage structures as part of your development. So, all those design standards are either in the subdivision regulations or by reference to a public improvement specification that engineering maintains and keeps. Again, I know we've talked about sidewalks and whether they should or shouldn't be, how thick or, you know, wide they are and whatnot. Those kinds of things would things that you might look to talk about through your subdivision regulations. Okay, so what Jeff and I were gonna do today is just take a few minutes and show you some examples of subdivision, particularly open space subdivisions that were designed, show you the subdivision layout, and then show you a real life picture of what it looks like. Just to give you guys some perspective on, you know, what kind of stuff we have around town. The only other thing I wanted to show, and I had shown someone this recently, where on our website you guys can get to the town mapping and do your own little exploration if you want to do that. So we'll take just a second to show you that. And then if you look on the thing I sent you, the future housing topics really gets into the density housing, you know, your SRDs, your DRZs, your multifamilies, you know, that's the other, if you're looking at what other kind of housing types we have. You know, the accessory apartments, independent livings, your 830G developments that occurred, you know, the Metro Really developments, those are all multifamily type housing. And then another component in my eyes for this whole thing is the affordable housing and how that's going to, you know, be incorporated into the regulations. That one to me is kind of a step back because we don't have our affordable housing plan adopted yet. So, you know, kind of a 6-week breather on that one. But, you know, that's kind of, you know, again, I'm just trying to be a little bit comprehensive on the kinds of things that you might be considering or wanting to look at. So before Jeff hops up and shows you this, I just want to show you, if you go out to our website ever and you ever want to look at any properties on your own, pretty simple. We have an online servicing which goes to a GIS main page. And this is going to be an interactive mapping program. And this is just going to be all address driven. So, you know, a name or an address, you're going to be able to do it. I'm just going to call it Town Hall just for ease of showing you. Oh, I should have picked an easier one.
Type S.
You don't have a keyboard.
I don't think it lets you type a letters. What's
Oh,
Probably a keyboard option down on the bottom there.
Let's see if there's a 15 bar lane. There is. Lucky for me. So then it'll take you right to the property on here. You know, you can start looking at properties. You can look at lengths of cul-de-sacs. You got property dimensions on it. You have different layers. This is where we can put on the aerial if you want to see that. So, you know, again, when we're starting to, and I'm going to give you a map when you leave tonight that's going to kind of show you different subdivisions around town, isolated in red. You can go play around on your computers at home and take a look at things if you want to look at it. Caution everybody, this is what we call planning data. This is not survey quality data, so you don't put a ruler and say, oh yeah, that's really 50 feet to my shed. Because this is not, you know that it's not accurate. But I'd like people just to know where that stuff is. And then just since we're here, I just want to make sure too, especially for newer members, that you know that all of your information related to your applications is very easily located up here under your page. Zoning Commission. On the side here we have pending and recently approved applications. This is Caitlin's life here to keep this up to date for y'all, but again, we update everything here, so you can always find pieces that you may have lost. And what's really kind of with any of our lawsuits or things like this is the record right here that they're using, so you can go back to anything's hyperlinked and stuff. So anyway, I just want to show you all that. So at this point, I'm going to introduce Jeff Folger. I don't know if everybody knows him, but Jeff is our environmental planner, and he works for the Wetlands Commission and has for 20-something million years. How many? A long time.
Long time. I know.
I mean, as we dive into the regulations, there are two kinds of goals we get at. One is to fix problems that we see, and the other is to achieve objectives like affordable housing or whatever. to increase the amount of housing or decrease the amount of housing, you know, and so you send off a committee to work on something and they don't have an objective, or they don't have some idea from the rest of the commission where they're headed. Like, you know, we could go through and find problems and ambiguities and regulations, and, but where are we going for objectives?
You know, and that's kind of what hopefully the start of this discussion tonight is, you know, we can do anything you want us to do, but we need to know where we're heading with this kind of stuff. So I mean, it's almost a brainstorming of what, you know, once we talked about housing, and I don't know how much housing talk you want to have before you do a brainstorming. That's
Okay, well, let's go ahead,
so Jeff's just gonna kind of run through a couple. I think we picked 5 different open space subdivisions just to. And just for those that.
While we're waiting for him, I mean, I would love to hear from you what you see as some of the problem areas that need fixing when you get a chance. Not necessarily right now, but, I mean, you have a vision of this that probably exceeds any of us, except maybe Bart, as to what's going on.
Well, over the years, there's been a lot of things that Michelle and I have talked about during applications, and I know she's documented a lot of things that we'd like to change, and there's a lot of tagged pages in her book that we want to address. I mean, some of them we've already addressed along the way.
Okay, now you're starting to head into what I was asking about, so I like that.
So where we picked these open space subdivisions is in 1999, we rewrote the open space subdivision regulations. So things like Country View Estates and Mountain View Estates and all those up there were done under a different set of zoning regulations than the ones that we're gonna probably talk about tonight. So this is the Chase Orchards, the Cutler Ridges, the Zen Tree Farm. This is when we were requiring 50% open space. This example here is Chase Orchards. It's a combination of open space types as far as ownership and things like that, so. I'll let you explain that a little bit, Jeff.
Right, so, obviously an aerial view, got the layout here, open space area in this section here, privately owned open space, going through the center of the development. So they've got their clubhouse in this area here, and, this is kind of I think an example of a good idea that didn't work. This was a peach orchard historically, and one of the things that we designed in this is areas of open space in between the houses through here, these corridors, that were meant to actually remain with the peach trees in them. They didn't cut them in there, so the orchard trees were still there, and the thought was that, number one, it would provide a screening in between backyards on there, give you a little bit more privacy. Number two, if you wanted to avail yourself of peaches, they were still growing and still there. So those were kind of left untouched as the development was being built. One of the things that we didn't realize, and one of the biggest complaints of the folks when they moved in there, was the fruit would drop on the ground and the bees would get the fruit. They were bothered by the bees, so they didn't like the peach trees there, and they actually cut most of them down. So this is what we now have. This is a 2016 aerial, I believe, on there. So there is a smatter of trees in here, and for the most part, it's actually being maintained as grass. So our wonderfully envisioned natural corridors kind of went away, and they went for more of a manicured situation.
What would you change in the zoning regulations or the subdivision regulations to fix that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, you know, you just never know what people are gonna like as far as that. This seems to has remained the same if you go back to like the 2012 aerials and even the 09 aerials. These kind of stayed the same, so it looks like it's kind of reached somewhat of an equilibrium as far as the homeowners are concerned, what they want. But definitely isn't what was originally envisioned in those bells. The areas obviously of natural open space have remained still the same, heavily forested. You've got the brook that comes down through here and then goes to the Hockham River as well. That's one of the stems to it.
And that's 50%?
Yep.
Between this open space and this open space here.
And then just south of it was another leg that,
Right.
of a different subdivision, isn't that Stone Crossing, that second?
Yeah.
So that was Rob Manarino came in and extended that. If you remember, John Dorn did the original
Mm-hmm.
Elkett Ridge. So that was another 50% of open space in that other one there.
So this is off of Sand Hill Road?
No, this is off of Avery.
That's
Yeah,
right across from
Avery
the
School
Avery Street
is up there.
Yep, Philip R. Smith right there.
I think the thing that impressed me the most
Oh, yeah.
driving around them was the different tree belts that we've looked at over the years. You know, back in the old days, it used to be 2 trees per lot. And then the developer would pay you $500 if you'd write a letter to town that you didn't want a tree. And so they weren't getting trees. So we fixed that and we put a tree easement in, you know, and we get street trees now. And they really make a difference in developments, the street trees. So I think that our tree warden will have some comments to us on design of where they're located and some things like that. But I think, you know, and that's kind of why we wanted to have you guys start looking at some of the areas in town, because I think some of the older areas and newer areas, you can see some changes with some improvements. So I was pleasantly surprised because I hadn't gone out to a lot of these developments in a while. They've really grown up over 20 years with a lot of tree growth.
And when this was built, this is the town line right here, Vernon. This high-density housing wasn't here, this was all fields. And one part of the requirements was that they actually put a string of evergreens right along the town boundary there. And that has matured, and that has produced a pretty good visual buffer to what became a really high-density development in their backyards. So that was somewhat of a good example of how forethought did work out in this particular case on there.
Do we want to discuss anything like what we like about this type of
We
development?
just look at a
or-
couple different ones first and then
Okay.
so you just have different couple people
Sure.
to see.
So if we were to go a little bit to the south. Okay, so here's Cutler Ridge, or Talcott Ridge up here. This is Cutler Ridge, Cornerstone Drive on here. For those that were here during that application, there was a little bit of a controversy and discussion about, initially there was gonna be a road coming out here to,
Existing road, 50-foot right away.
to Pine, was it Pine Knob?
Yeah.
No, it's Murray.
Or Murray in that point, it's Murray, yeah,
Right.
it's turns over.
And there was a lot of pushback on that by the developer, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I see the
I guess the
litigate,
neighbors didn't want it either,
Yeah.
so, yeah, the neighbor, there was a lot on there. That was abandoned by zoning, and instead we've got a very, very long cul-de-sac with a loop around on there.
The 4th grade bikers go down there every year.
Do they?
On our 3rd day, we do a bike ride from the school, go all the way down to the end, turn around. It's a nice little hill, they can shift gears and all that stuff.
Is that the longest
It's gotta be
cul-de-sac we have in town?
it's gotta be pretty close to it.
Gotta be, yeah.
And you know, again, that's some of the stuff that we can talk about with the cul-de-sac and things like that.
So here's an example of the open space in this area here, closer to Abbey, and then again,
Avery.
back here in Avery, I'm sorry, and then back here. And this is a good example of where we've got a quarter of open space from Talcott Ridge to the extension of Talcott Ridge, and then down here to Cornerstone. As it heads down, and this is all part of that stream drainage that comes down, crosses over here and goes into the Hockham River.
So if we didn't have open space subdivisions on these, you wouldn't see any more lots, but what you would see is there'd be no open land that wasn't owned by somebody. So in other words, it would all be just part of somebody's lots. And then you lose the control of whether they clear them or not, because we really, single-family house lots, if you wanna denude your lot of every tree, we really have no way to stop you from doing that. So, those are some of the trade-offs of why you might want open space subdivisions if you're in an environmentally sensitive area or natural features that you wanna save. And again, the regulations speak to that, but, some people say, oh, just do large lots, we don't want that. I think this is a good example where you've got accumulation of open space now that you're able to.
So it seems to me there's like, broadly speaking, two uses of open space. One is to kind of say, well, this has recreational value, maybe we'll have trails in here, maybe we'll actually put a field in there or something. And the other is it's just conserving, maybe it's a wetland and you wouldn't want to build on it anyway, but it conserves the environment, protects
Gives you a wildlife corridor.
wildlife corridor and so on, yeah.
So you could pull up Toll Brothers now, for example, to your point. Toll Brothers put in a walking trail. I mean, that's what they put in a field. So, that's a passive recreation use.
For residents only.
Because we, as a town, chose not to take it as town-owned land, right? We had that option, but we chose not to.
So that's the other aspect of open space is it
Along
could be
that.
owned by the town or it can be owned by,
It can be owned by the town, it can be owned by the state, it can be owned by a homeowners association, it can be owned by a nonprofit. So there's actually, if you look in your regulations, there's actually a tier, with the town kind of having first right of refusal if they want.
This is Toll. And we talked long and hard, open space, task force kind of weighed in on the value of the town owning this open space here. And it was thus decided against the town owning it. So it has become private open space that they do mow it, maintain it, and then you can see the trail system that goes through here and then comes out.
that's between Griffin and Nevers, so.
Graham.
Graham and-
Graham and Nevers, yeah, I get the two mixed up.
Is, just out of curiosity, I think you're the one that turned me on to this GIS thing when you were talking about the history of different, from 1946 to 56, but the piece on Dart Hill and Avery, where the town cleared it, was that part of the open space across the street?
Which part of the Hair There's 4 corners.
Um,
Which one you at?
You know where the town cleared all the,
Lawrence?
Lawrence Road.
Lawrence, yes, Lawrence.
Northwest corner.
The history of that was when Dart Hill Estates came in for subdivision.
Yep.
There was 4 phases there. The town did not know at the time what we wanted done with the property, so we had them grade it. It was always meant to be active recreation, the records will show that.
Right.
But nobody knew what active recreation we wanted, so it was left to be graded, and then years went on
So
and
that
it
was
grew
part
up.
of that.
Dart Hill
sub-
Estates, open
Okay.
space subdivision, yep.
Okay.
I think they farmed it
1990.
for a couple of years, didn't they? And then
Yeah, and then it slowly grew up, and then there was legal issues with it, and.
Russian olives.
But it was slated for an active recreation area in
Okay.
the original approval.
So could you bring up the Masco Road extension that we just approved? I don't know if you have.
So you ask if there's ones that we have
Kilkenny.
concerns with.
Okay.
I think this one here probably
Here's the one.
is the one kind of, just makes me think that we need to take a look at some aspects of our open space subdivision. I by no means think that it needs to be thrown out, because I think we have a pretty good open space subdivision regulations, but I think some of the lots that we created here really.
What bothers me, and I probably voted for the darn thing, but what bothers me is the people on that right half of the road there, the east half, have actually not only a power line, but a public access easement going behind their property. So that property, I mean, the size of the lots is consistent with the regulation, but the usable size of the lot is, 2/3 of what
Right.
we've got there,
Right.
So we have a regulation that's called the buildable square regulation. So
Uh-huh.
on every residential lot you're creating, you need to be able to create a 90 by 90 square, 10,000 square feet, I know it doesn't quite add up, but you need to have 10,000 square feet exclusive of easement areas, exclusive of wetlands areas, steep slopes. But 90 by 90, 10,000 square feet, these all met that.
Uh-huh.
But when you're looking at 20,000 square feet, that means only half the lot is usable. So That may be something that, depending on what lot size it is, you wanna look at, maybe that's okay for half-acre lots, but for lots that are larger than that, you want larger than 10,000 square foot buildable area. But that's, that's what we have related to that, regulation right now, and obviously it allows us to get creative.
And I'm glad to have the walkway there, and, yeah, it's kinda odd.
But in the same sentence, the access to that walkway, I believe, ends at that northern turquoise line.
Right,
know?
there's a little access road there, route.
Right.
Yeah. And then further south, there's another access point, right?
Yeah, yep. Yeah,
And
somewhere
that's
in there.
all connected to, and that's part of the, connected to the open space on the, I don't know what the other development is.
Zen Tree Farm has open space out there.
And then the Vintage Lane.
Vintage Lane is.
Vintage Lane is, yeah.
That's one of those ones that came in with 20% open space. That is not an open space subdivision, but they gave the town 20% open space. So that pond that's south of Vintage Lane, that's all part of an open space strip.
Now, the alternative was, when they proposed this, Kilkenny 2, is it? They said, well, we could do single family, we could do non-open space, and they were chewing up all of that land with housing, and so we as a commission said we like it better, have the open space subdivision and build a corridor of open space, so there's pros and cons to everything you do. I think we probably made the best option.
Yeah, but like you said, the configuration of those lots and currently it's allowed in our zoning regulations. I don't feel that should be allowed. I think the lots should have been wider and not to include the easements.
And that's where, like, your open space regulation allows your lot width to get actually down to 75 feet. We have yet to see that anywhere.
That's a tough house to build.
Well, no, the idea
that's
was,
tight.
you're gonna come in and you're gonna open up and you're gonna have some creativity, you're gonna have some winding roads and different kinds of lots.
Right.
That's not what got developed. So I think you gotta get away from 75 feet because we're seeing a minimum of 100. And sometimes 110, might be better depending on, again, where you are and what zone you're in.
Well, that's,
10 foot side yard zoning setbacks from the property line, so you put that in with the 100, you've only got really 80 feet of buildable area.
right.
Some of these big houses are chew that up pretty quickly.
So again, we're talking about single-family lots. Part of our discussion will be at some point about density housing, which is different than covering up single-family lots. So just so we're not just thinking this is the end-all of our housing end.
One of the other issues with this is the fact that you could have wetlands in the middle of one of these properties, which almost makes it impossible to use the back of the lot. And I'm not saying that's exactly the case here, but it's a possibility when you allow wetlands to be part of the lot minimum computation.
So you're saying it'd be okay to have a lot with wetlands on it, but it doesn't count, it shouldn't count in the minimum.
Correct. And, that's just something I want to look at and see what the impact is.
And part of what we can do to help that discussion is, we have obviously the ability to do mapping. We know what pieces aren't built on out there. I mean, we can produce a map that shows vacant parcels out there for people to start to get a feel for, are they all up in your residential, R zone up there that doesn't have sewers? Are they in other parts of town? I mean, we have that kind of information available, and then maybe it helps to think a little bit more about whether, geez, these pieces would be better developed in an open space format versus large lots, depending on the context of where they are in town, too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we can show that and see here. I don't know if we get back to that.
good at this, Jeff. See? We waited 3 years to use this machine. We're finally out of COVID, we can use it.
So this shows all of the open space parcels that currently exist in town, whether it's privately owned, whether it's subdivision open space, you can see by the orange, open space that we've purchased in green, town facilities in purple, and then other open space like development rights or DEP properties on there. So this was part of the open space task force information, and one of the things that we're doing as well. There. So, when Open Space Task Force did their master plan, one of the things that they did was they developed a list of target properties that they felt were gonna be worthy of consideration for open space parcels purchases in the future. And you can see some of these, the original right here in purple. These parcels right down here were ones that they thought of were valuable enough to consider and actually place on a list.
Those are the lavender ones, right?
Lavender, right.
Right.
Yep.
Just for context, for example, the one is the Carino property, for example, if anybody knows that, right up on Ellington Road, but one would be the Willowbrook is a property, right?
Yep, Willowbrook
Just,
right here.
you know, when you try to think of what kinds of properties there are around town,
The golf course.
Yep,
golf
Yeah.
course, yeah.
Foster Farm down in this area. The Burden property over there off of Ferry Lane.
Now, the Jones Farm would show on this, or not?
It shows purchased.
Jones Farm is
already
purchased,
purchased.
yeah.
So the importance of this target property map is if someone proposes development on a target property, planning and zoning has the option of requiring an open space subdivision. Okay, so your regulations are tied to this map. It says if it's a target property, they've got to approach you and you decide whether it's better developed conventionally or whether you want to see an open space subdivision. We had that discussion on Kilkenny Heights, if you recall. We had that discussion on Chestnut Ridge, which was up off of Barber Hill. That was a target property the town chose not to buy. That came as an open space subdivision. So that's the importance of this mapping to your regulations.
So where do these maps exist officially? I mean, I've seen a lot of these maps, and you guys are great at producing maps.
I mean, this is a document out on the website. I mean, this is the open space master plan.
It's in the
It's
open
out there.
space master plan.
And how often is it updated? I mean,
That's,
Well, we're updating it now, and that's where the blue outline parcels come into play. So, Open Space Task Force is considering adding additional priority parcels to their maps.
just,
You can see some of them right here. There's a good one here, the golf course,
uh-huh.
okay?
and just to tie it to the plan of conservation and development on page 37 of your plan, you have the open space and greenway plan. And a lot of these properties that are being considered by Open Space Task Force are plans that would help complete the greenway plans.
What page is that, Bart?
37. It, look on the left, because there's, yeah, you got it. And there's that study right now, Walking Wheelways, about completing like a greenway or designing one of the greenways.
It's actually the Crosstown Trail, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The power line quarter, pretty much.
Yeah, that, for those who just, it goes, starts here, it goes up along these power lines and all the way up past, Niederwerfer, up to Niederwerfer Road where the power lines cross. It's being designed, it isn't being built.
Right, but it's a step in the right
I have a
direction.
plan, starts with a plan.
Yeah, we actually had that at the anniversary fair, the.
Why don't we look at
anniversary fair.
Zen, Fraser Fur, I think that might be one more to look at.
Ooh, our fishing pond, which was just used a couple weeks ago for the fishing derby.
Down here.
And that's-
The substation over there,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a noisy facility that they repaired.
but you look at an area, and this is an area that's development potential. I mean, I know it's all in farming right now, but it's not in protected farming.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're thinking of regulations, would open space regulations be appropriate up here as a requirement versus, conventional, I don't know. I mean, those are some things you certainly have some opportunity to tie in land, which we've been doing.
Yeah, actually, we had the first crack at the Zen Farm property, the Zen Tree Farm property. It was offered to us, we had an appraisal done on it, and then Manarino came in and offered them twice what the appraised value was on the land. So that was kind of taken away. Same thing with John Zen's property here. I believe that initially, we considered that as well for purchase, and for some reason, we passed on it. I don't think we went to
Years
as far
ago,
as,
yeah.
yeah.
There's been discussion of solar farms in that area.
Yep.
Which can lead to a lot of interesting discussions.
Yeah, here's the sledding hill here, that was talked about, and then this is this is all part of the Niederwerfer property. This is the field that, I believe,
Leased.
one of the Zen's leases right now for crops.
I think they make hay there, is that right?
And if you go further north, you can see, can we see Chestnut Ridge on this one?
only
Probably
when
not,
the
yeah.
sun shines.
No, but I have it on another one. So
Yeah.
Chestnut Ridge is gonna be just over, this line here would be the boundary, and Chestnut Ridge would be up here, which is the latest one. So here's the open space for Zen Farms in the north here, and then also in the south down here, which obviously includes the pond.
And the crosstown bike trail will go on the east side of the power line, of the power subdivision.
Can you point to the power lines?
See the power lines going up on the
Power
right?
lines, corridors right through here,
Yeah.
and I believe then it goes
Straight
north.
north here.
Say where it's
Right.
cleared.
So there's a little bit of private,
Say
a lot of private property that the
down there, and then it
bike
goes
trail would have to cross. You obviously get an easement to cross there, but the idea would be go right up that corridor where the power lines are there.
Right.
On the right, yeah.
Yeah, so this area, this part of the open space currently is being managed for grassland bird habitat, and that was to mitigate the losses down at the I-291 corridor. Originally, it was for the studios, and then for Home Depot warehouse.
Masco Road is not too far from there, right? It may actually be showing on there.
Masco Road is right here.
Yeah, okay. And there's another power line that goes up behind Masco Road.
Right here,
and,
this route right here.
and that's the one we were looking
That
at
links
before.
down, yeah. This is where the reindeer are, right here. What else we wanna see? We wanna look at interior lots.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of what we had for the open space subdivisions. We did do a couple interior lots, again, just to give you a look at the interior lots. Although I think we only have those as plans, or do you have them as?
Oh, I've got aerials.
Oh, you got aerials, okay.
Yep.
All right.
This is Davis here. This is the plan.
That's the plan, so
Yeah,
we'll
so
look
if
at that
you
one
wanna
last.
look at, let's see,
Foreign, is that one interior?
yep.
Over
And
here
I've
to
got
the left,
aerials
go to the
as
left.
well, so.
All right. This one was an early one on that was very controversial, to be honest with you. In a neighborhood that neighbors did not want it. This is over on Foster Street.
Worcester Street.
Never really heard anything after it going in, but, you know, so this was like an oversized lot, and this is what they were able to come up with. Didn't have proper frontage, but it, you know.
There was a lot of neighbor opposition while this was being considered.
What were their objections?
Yeah.
Not in my backyard.
Not knowing, you know,
Honestly,
encroachment
yeah.
into an area that they were not familiar with, you know, that'd been an area that had been wooded and you know,
Uh-huh.
very common NIMBY kind of concern, I would say. But, you know, again, a lot of times you hear them when they're being proposed and you don't really hear much
What
after.
was the frontage on that one? Was it 75 feet?
That, I believe, is a A30 zone, so I think it might only be 150 feet of frontage, and they probably had a, I don't know if, you know, we've had regulations that didn't require you to own frontage, like you are required in today's regulations, so it used to be you could have an easement over it, so I don't recall that an easement or not.
Uh-huh.
So this is Foster Street Extension, this was Manorino's project a couple years ago.
Yeah.
This is where you had 2 frontage lots and 1 interior lot.
Is that the one where you didn't want to dig the sewer deep enough?
Oh, the answer to that one.
And that, one on the street, the northern
No, I think that was
parcel just sold
Maskell.
Oh, did it?
almost twice.
Maskell has,
I'm talking about one of these little,
oh, okay.
Close to six.
We've seen this design a couple places. We've seen it on Graham Road, we've seen it on Burnham Street, where they've had 2 frontage lots and 1 interior, and you get some kind of shared driveway.
Didn't we
Um,
just do something for John Jakes? Didn't
You did an interior lot on
Miller.
Miller, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Had
that's
the
one,
house in the front, the older house that he was
Yeah,
gonna
coming
raise,
down.
yeah.
yeah. Probably the biggest challenge with interior lots, is if they're too small, if they're just very minimum, you don't get the buffering, screening, protection. I don't think our regulations give us good enough requirements to get the protection that we need. And again, once it's sold, they'll go in and clear it. There's nothing that requires them to not, you know, we don't really have any control
There's
over it.
no conservation easement.
Yeah, it's not easements or something like that, so, that might be where, an area we could tighten up a little bit.
Oh, I know where this one is.
This is on Main Street as well.
That's Neary's
Standard
piece.
kind of flag lot. As a lot of towns describe them.
Is that,
locked up by Oxbow, okay.
is that,
Actually, there's 2 of them there, the one to the,
One of them's
part that's
Neary's.
built was Page, got it approved originally, remember that, Jeff?
I saw the Neary house for sale.
And so then the other is the Neary house, and then behind it is actually a lot there, that they're actually gonna be having access coming south instead of north like it's shown there. They have
I
change
thought it-
order. But
I saw
anyhow,
a
that's
sign
a
out
lot
there.
that's available out there as well. And you know, that's, you say, that doesn't look like it meets the requirements of an interior lot, it doesn't look that large in context, cause you have larger lots around it, but it clearly does.
Like I said, this was an interior, this is an older one here that was done.
Yeah, and they had a lot of
Late
wetlands,
90s maybe?
94, I think it was.
94?
Michelle, how do you remember this stuff?
94, 04.
Oh, yeah, 94, it was.
They fall off
imagine
the
when
side
she
of it.
retires,
Oh
how
my
screwed
God.
we are.
We are so
I have no idea.
It will happen.
You have to bring it back with a consultant.
Suck it up, my account.
Easy, that's Lady Mary.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay. Another one here.
The Davis
I
one.
think the
is on there.
connectivity for the open space is big.
Yeah, you really can
Very
see it
important.
with, you know, some of
It's
the,
almost like you'd like to see more on the drawings that shows
this is
the
another.
potential for the connections.
so you wonder what kind of lots qualify for interior lots. Here's a perfect example, you know, it's a flag lot doesn't have much frontage, but clearly is, I think it was 3 acres or something like that, so can support another house lot on it.
Is this John's? Is
Yeah,
this the one?
this is
Yeah,
the one.
that's
Yeah.
the one.
4 acres somewhere in there.
Actually, I think all we had was the front page of this, we didn't even
Yeah,
have
we have to go into the
a lot
right, so.
division on it.
And why don't you just show the Davis one, cause I think,
Yeah.
it's right, no, there you go. this is one that I think that, you know, if you're gonna keep them in the A20 zone, which I think is a discussion point, they didn't.
You can pull up the Davis on the town website if you
Oh,
need
did we
to.
give you the wrong one?
Yeah.
It's not that important, but I guess what my
Is this the
point
one
is,
on
it's an
Pleasant Valley
A,
Road?
yeah, it's A20 zone, we added it to A20 zone, if you recall, because someone wanted it to create one. You didn't used to have interior lots in the A20 zone, so I'm not sure, looking at how much available A20 zone there is, it may be that you don't even want them in the future in the A20 zone, because I'm not really sure it's worth looking at to take out, because I think with the Davis one of the concerns I had was it didn't have very much of a depth to the lot, and so you kind of end up with a squishy project, which I think our bulk requirements didn't dictate the depth, but I think you end up with a really elongated lot, and I don't really think that was really what we were trying to accomplish with our interior lot. So that, to me, that's an example of one that's really, didn't really,
Is that the one we just approved?
Yeah.
a while
just
back.
Back in like November or something.
But again, the A20 zone, we could go through and tell you how much land's available, and it's gonna be very little. You know, you're not gonna have a lot of A20 zone land out there that's not built on, because it usually got rezoned and built.
That's the feng shui lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one.
faces east.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we wanted to just kind of give you just some, get you thinking a little bit, you know, drive around town a little bit. I do have this map here, I'll get to you, I didn't make enough copies, I guess. But this just identifies some of the different subdivisions around town, if you want to go look at them. We did produce aerials when there's a subcommittee that we can hand off to someone to look at that. But to your question, Steve, like what are some of the things that, you know, we think are wrong with the regulations? I think we talked about some of them tonight. I think looking at some of what we allow go into lots, what we allow go into open space calculations, you know, we just want to take a look at it and you know, maybe fine tune it based on it. Again, I think from looking at your open space, what you've created through your open space subdivisions, I think you have some really nice developments out there. I don't think we, you know, need to throw it all out and start over by any means, because I think we've got some really good projects that are coming out of open space subdivisions, so. My 2 cents.
So there are also, I can think of at least one kind of separate thing we talked about, like a sign regulation. Are there other little other miscellaneous changes we've been talking about?
Well, you know, I mean,
Outside of this 2 subject areas here, just that we've been putting off talking about.
well, I think if we go back to what, you know, there's some things that we're gonna be at public hearing next week, or which are all regulations created to the law that you had to work on. We still have a couple of those things to work on related to parking requirements and things.
One thing that, and again, it doesn't really pertain to the residential or the industrial scheme of things, but that I think we should get more involved in, you know, we take a look at, you know, nobody likes the big box stores, but then again, we can somebody builds a CVS in South Windsor and it looks like a CVS you'll see in downtown East Hartford. You go to Glastonbury, their CVS doesn't look like a CVS. So somehow we need to get tied in, whether it's with architectural review or something, but we have no taste. Okay, people show us these facades with brick and this, that, the other thing. But when it comes to our commercial building, like residential stuff, I think they've done a really nice job, but we've missed the boat on future development, say town center, whenever that does come, where we were talking about, you know, where Dick Kelly's land and abuts where Bobby or so owned. When those changes come, I think we gotta do a better job on what they bring us as far as aesthetics.
Okay, we have, I mean, the architecture committee is a subcommittee of us, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
they're,
we're not giving them any guidance?
Right, yeah,
well, they don't design stuff. They are advisory to us.
Yeah.
But and what they go by is what the regulations say and, you know, the look of what is included. but we can change, the regulations if we want.
I'll just make one comment on town center. We have put in village district zoning in town center, correct? Remember, we did the overlay zone. That is embedded with design standards. That's the whole purpose you do village district zoning, is that if you don't, it's more like the design's what's important, the use isn't so important. So I think when that goes to get redeveloped or developed, I think you do currently have good regulations in place to address that. So we've never had to exercise them yet, because nobody's come in under the village district zoning in town center. But I would, before I think you gotta take a look at what you have in place before you wanna change it, because I think you would be, we just haven't had it operational yet.
And to your point about Glastonbury, that CVS might be in a village district area. I'm not quite sure, but CVS doesn't just build something that fits in real nice out of their own.
Again, and it doesn't, I'm not just saying Glastonbury, you can go Avon, you can go to a lot of places and you see a lot classier architecture than glass. You know, and again, I'll go back to across the street, the healthcare building. We approved one thing and we
Right.
didn't get what we approved, okay?
And then it came back to us, oh, well, we gotta make these changes, otherwise we're gonna lose them.
Right, and well, you know what? Never mind the grand list, this is what we asked for, and we need to stick to it, and it is what it is. And I think the aesthetics of the buildings in this community need to change, you know, we approved, I'm not picking on Mexicali, it's a great restaurant, whatever, but looking at the backside of a building, like, we did it wrong.
To hide the parking.
Correct, and that's, again,
I think that's something we gotta look at, is how much do we really wanna hide the parking? Because I agree with you, I didn't like the way Mexicali came out, but it was done that way because we wanted the parking away from the street.
Yeah, it's just, I think we just have to tune in what we look at, and, you know, we keep talking about, well, we haven't talked about it in a while, but what, ultimately Route 5, that's the main corridor going down the road, and we,
Our design criteria there also is,
it's loose, and
Yep.
we need to fix what's broken.
maybe that's something we can think about in the future for our plan of conservation and development.
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I don't wanna cloud up what we got going on here, but it's just something that I think if we are in a moratorium, we don't have to just, or do we just have to concentrate on the distribution centers and the housing, or can we?
Well, it's gonna be a process to get to where we wanna be.
Right, I hear you.
That doesn't mean we're gonna ignore everything else in town or good ideas, you know? If somebody sees something that's gotta be fixed, then we can do it along the way with little resistance or, then we'll do it.
Do we envision tackling these concurrently? Or are we gonna do one at a time?
We got to do
Together?
both.
Only got
Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was even suggesting to the chair that if you did have subcommittees at your regular meetings, to have a brief subcommittee report, just so the whole commission's aware of where these committees are heading, just highlight it, just so that you don't want to have 3 people agree on things and bring it to the rest of you and you don't agree, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's gonna be important to keep each other informed. And a year's gonna go quick, so we don't wanna, yeah.
So you were gonna talk about who you wanted on committees or whatever.
well, just in what I've seen so far, I mean, like I said, Paul's worked with Michelle to bring some things forward. I think that would be a great committee for him. But also if other people want to be on committees, I hear Alan's done some stuff with affordable housing, and that the moratorium one might be one that he would like to participate in. But you know, I'm not twisting anybody's arm to be on committees. But if you wanna be part of the progress, that's probably the best way.
And now, when there's a subcommittee meeting, it's 3 people, so it's not a quorum, right?
3 people from planning and zoning, yeah.
So it's not a quorum.
Yeah.
It's just, on my end, as, you know,
Does
this
the
is,
affordable housing group continue, or are we
No, you're
done?
done.
We're
You're
done
done.
once it's approved, okay,
So they're gonna bring something to us to approve?
just curious.
The plan that was sent to you is at public hearing next Tuesday.
Okay.
With your commission. Yeah. And your comments will be addressed, I mean, our consultant's got those, and he's gonna have something to address that at the meeting, so.
And it is a plan, I mean, it's gonna be a work in progress, that's our first one, so, you know, it probably won't be it could be close to the same in 10 years, who knows?
You gotta update it every 5 years, so.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
update it in 5 and find
Well,
out.
I'm thinking, you know, 2 plan changes, it could be a lot different, who
Sure.
knows?
Yeah. Especially if laws change and, you know, look for you to do it differently.
Just in what Michelle had offered, I'm thinking Monday nights probably would be a good night, depending on people's schedules for meetings, subcommittee meetings. I just have open space task force on the first Monday of the month. But other than that, I'm available on Monday nights. Does anybody have any kind of feeling about if they would like to be on a committee or available to be on a committee, or which committee that they'd like to participate in? And it could just be 2 people from planning and zoning on a particular committee, and I know Alan had mentioned possibly bringing in people, other members of the public or whatever, like the housing, if we brought people from interested areas such as like the Hilton Drive area, we've had a lot of public participation from there and a lot of smart and knowledgeable people who might be interested.
especially for the warehouses. I
Yeah.
mean, they've dug in and they've done a lot of homework and
Yep.
very well educated.
So,
I mean, I really would like to sit on that one, but being I'm a seasonal, my company is, we're in it now and we don't slow down until, you know,
December.
seeding season of October, but, that's my only issue, but
I wouldn't mind being on any of these committees, so why don't you figure out what you need?
Okay. Well, a lot of that's gonna be based on who participates. I don't know if Mike's available for committees. You know, he's not here tonight because,
He just started a new job that
Right,
requires
and
some
he's in New
travel.
York,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
what a way to retire.
well, when you can double dip, the kids are going to college, why not, you know?
yeah,
What
for
I did.
new members who wanna get involved, committees are a great way to start. So, you can think about it, you can send me an email, you can email Michelle about your interest. We do gotta get going on this though.
Well, I think the residential maybe could be divided into, you know, kind of multifamily versus, you know, the single family, with the open space subdivisions kind of thing. So it seems to me like the two residential and a warehouse committee.
Bart, are you gonna sit on both?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna sit on whatever committees are formed.
Okay, that's good, I think that's good,
I've got
actually.
some time.
Thank God somebody does.
Art, I would think, depending on the time, I would sit on something, but, I really can't start until 5:30, cause I don't get off work till 5:30.
Okay, that's good to know.
I'm happy to sit on.
For me, schedule changes every 6 months due to the new semester, so it's really up in the air, but I can move time around.
Yeah, okay. any preference. I'm not really hearing jumping out anybody wanting to be on a particular committee.
I wanna be on the one with the warehouse, the only thing is if I sign up for something, I wanna be able to participate in it.
Yeah.
If,
Yeah, no, I'm hearing what you're saying. My issue though too is I'm trying to make them bipartisan.
Right.
Because I don't want any political inklings.
Put me down for the warehouse, for the industrial.
Shouldn't be an issue, but who the heck knows?
Or, I don't,
I know, it never has been, but I don't know.
What's
Maybe.
this?
No, it shouldn't be an issue.
I said,
What's
you know,
after
no,
our name?
Not
I don't
here.
think that, you know,
No. And I'm only hesitating, Bart, I just got on this Park and Rec selection, and I think we're gonna meet Monday nights.
Yeah,
So,
You know, you can take up the affordable housing later on in the year. We're
Yeah.
gonna talk about the affordable housing part.
yeah, all right.
Okay, good.
all
We
right.
got her on phase 2 committee.
okay.
Yeah, that I'm
Awesome.
invested in, so,
Okay,
No, you've done your due.
I know.
but especially on that warehouse, I think that it, you know, whoever's best for it should be on it, and, you know, it shouldn't be political. I mean, I don't,
No, it was
When
unanimous.
Alan had mentioned it, you know, when we last met regarding that, about bringing in like a liaison from then, how does that work? Would they be allowed to participate or?
And vote and all that.
No, I don't think.
it would be a subcommittee, so, the subcommittee really is, advisory to the main committee. That wouldn't be an issue. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if,
Yeah, I think, you know, I don't want them to be as a free-for-all. I mean, we wanna structure them, and they're gonna have to have an agenda, what we're gonna cover at the meeting. You know, the one thing that I think that we need to bring into this is you don't wanna write a bunch of regulations that we legally don't have a right to write.
right,
So, you know, especially when it comes to the warehousing regulation, I mean, there's no sense regulating something that we can't. So there may be some legal questions right up front that need to be answered to help set the stage for writing some regulations, which is certainly, and I guess that's my only concern with, you know, making it too broad of a committee, that too many things get brought in, you know. I think we heard loud and clear the issues we need to address. I'm not trying to cut anybody out of the process, but you just wanna manage the process too.
okay.
And obviously, ultimately, whatever you do at the end of the day is gonna be a regulation that needs to go through a public hearing process.
Right.
Right,
You know, we won't be adopting these in the NEN room.
yeah, okay. So, how are we, we're already, well, we're in a special meeting, so. Otherwise, our meeting would be over. And, you know, we've had a lot to think about anyway. We only have one more, Monday in April. I think probably the 9th would probably be the first committee meeting, but we could possibly do the 9th, 16th, and 23rd of May.
Okay, so I'm not here the 9th, so we can do the 16th. How about that?
That, good to know.
Bart, maybe next Monday, you and I can sit down
Michelle away.
and kind of set up the framework for the 3 committees.
Yep, okay.
And then we can work on that, and then at next Tuesday's meeting, maybe we can have it as an agenda item just to kind of solidify the committee dates and things.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that.
That's the implementation. I mean, it says how you're gonna.
Okay,
So I have one other date that I'd like to try to confirm with folks. I did speak to our new town attorney. Don't ask me his name. I'm sorry, I apologize, I can't think of his name. Rich
Colella?
Anyhow, we have dates for a potential training, planning and zoning training, and this would just be a general session. We haven't had one in some years, but it's really great for new members and whatnot. So he's given me 3 dates that I want to kind of throw out. These would be Tuesday night dates. June 21st, July 19th, and August 9th. So that would be just a training night. This training would count towards your requirement, which starts next year. You have to have so many hours of training. This does count towards that.
Can you throw those dates out one more time?
June 21st, June 19th, and August 9th.
June 19th is a Sunday.
You're talking about July 19th.
July 19th, I'm
July
sorry.
19th,
July
okay.
19th, yes, I apologize.
What was the August date?
9th. If people want to check your calendars, I'd like to try to get the most numbers that we can there. We can,
August 9th is a primary date, if there are primaries.
okay, so maybe we steer away from that.
Well,
I'm
if
Alaska.
there are, right?
August 9th, they're in Alaska.
Likely
On the
that there will be.
Yeah.
I'd like to steer away from August just because we try to only have one meeting in August.
Yes,
I can do either of the other two though.
July 19th, I think is the best.
July 19th,
and
I think.
6/21 and 7/19, right? Is that what you said?
6/21 and 7/19 are kind of the two that sounds
July
like.
19th, right, Bart?
July 19th.
That's the one.
Sounds good.
It's the only one I can do.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and confirm July 19th with, and we'll get that on our calendar so that, folks, and I would imagine to be an hour and a half. You're just kind of running through roles and responsibility of the legal side of your jobs, so.
Okay.
Great, and then just as another thing, just since we don't have enough going on, I am gonna be starting to put together a request for proposal for the Plan of Conservation and Development. We will be hiring a consultant for that, assuming the funding gets put in place, which is.
Has the budget been approved yet?
It has not been approved, it was at Capitol the other night. It's a number 2 priority, so I'm hoping that the funding will stay in place. It's a 2-year funding, 50 this year with 50 next year as a max. So maybe whoever doesn't get on a committee will want to work with me on the POCD RFP and working on hiring a consultant for that. So that's another big thing that we have coming up as well.
Okay.
It's getting to be serious.
The last
A
thing
planning year.
on our agenda is just the appointments to Capital Regional Council of Governments. They sent out another, I guess their springtime push for who wants to serve on that. I'm
Bart,
Wasn't that
still,
you, Bart?
I'm still willing to serve, but I'm not, do we have a alternate?
I don't think we have an alternate at this time.
It would be great
Stephanie.
to have an alternate.
No, I think,
Did I see her hand go up?
If, you know, it's,
You went-
I know you did.
it's great to go to these meetings, even if they're
They're all
virtual.
in West Hartford.
Just
Oh,
to
they're virtual now?
They've been virtual.
She's like, that's like.
They've been virtual since COVID. But just to hear what else is going on in other towns and what issues that they're seeing, and also, you know, what ways we might be able to work together to help pass legislation such as this affordable housing. And, you know, is there a regional plan for maintaining these and stuff like that? So,
When do they meet?
they meet quarterly on, I believe it's like the 3rd Thursday of the month. But they have, on that communication, I don't know if you have it, it had the next 4,
Yeah, if anybody's
meetings.
interested, I can get you the dates.
They just had one, and I was ready to go on the meeting date they had. But then they postponed it for a week.
But
And
it's
I
always
had-
Thursdays?
It was a Thursday, yeah.
March 24th, June 23rd, September 22nd, November 17th. So June 23rd would be the next one.
Read those dates again, please.
June 23rd, September 22nd, and November 17th. So it's the 4th Thursday for 2 of them. There must be some
Town
conflict.
committee meeting.
Okay,
I
so,
think Alan's interested.
Yeah, I'm actually interested if it's quarterly. And it deals with a lot of, outreach as well.
It's a lot of general topics.
Exactly,
It's-
yeah.
there's some, like, education aspect to it. Like, they brought in people to talk about medical marijuana and other, hot topics like that. And they're also open to presentations if any of the members have ideas of what they would like to hear a presentation on, so.
Yeah, I'm interested.
get somebody working for us possibly. Okay, awesome.
We will submit your name.
Okay, I think that concludes our business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
What's the address of your house?